After a mass shooting in Michigan this weekend left 4 dead, Donald Trump's first instinct, as always, was to get on Truth Social. Now, it wasn't to offer up condolences. Trump didn't think to call for a policy change to end the epidemic of gun violence in America. No, he was after political gain, because that's all the right cares about now. So Donald Trump decided he would call a 40-year-old veteran, a white man, a member of the radical left, frame this as another attack on the right, a narrative which is complete bullshit and has to be called out, and is getting exposed by what this alleged assailant's own family had to say about him. It is blowing up Donald Trump's narrative. We are going to get into it all, but before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button, because it goes a long way in supporting our work. Now, before we get into what the assailant's family had to say that is completely exposing Donald Trump's narrative, I want to start with someone who blew up the entire narrative of the right on Fox today, and that was Jessica Tarlov right here.
And the conversation that Fetterman was having with Maria, and something that he posted on Twitter, which the Deputy White House Press Secretary did as well, was this chart that Axios published about this rise in left-wing violence. And the right was gleefully tweeting it, ignoring the fact that the right-wing violence was much larger than the left-wing violence, which is the truth about it. And you can go anywhere you want for these statistics. You can go to Cato, you can go to the Government Accountability Office, you can go to the Center for, Strategic and International Studies to see that. And in the wake of the absolutely tragic assassination of Charlie Kirk, the right, led by Donald Trump and J.D. Vance, wants to make it out as if the left are the only ones who have ever used the word fascist. And you can see a compilation of Stephen Miller saying it. It's passing all over Twitter. You have Donald Trump on tape. You have analyses of how many times that he's referred to Democrats and journalists as evil just in the first 6 months of his administration. And, I think that we should have led this conversation with the tragedies of this weekend. We had more mass shootings, which is just the daily occurrence in American life. And Kash Patel, J.D. Vance, and Donald Trump, Caroline Levin as well, out there with a very different narrative than I would think that they would have, but because it doesn't add up for them. The guy who drove up to the Mormon church, set the place on fire, killed 5 people, shooting them, was a Trump supporter. He had a Trump Vance flag in his backyard, which some on the right are trying to say that it said stop Trump. Doesn't make any sense. And if a leftist or someone had killed someone and had a Dark Brandon flag or a Biden-Harris flag, you don't think that Kash Patel, that would have been the first thing that he would have said?
Yeah, because the right is going everywhere saying, go after the Mormon people. You know there's a difference. You know there's a difference when there's one person, a one-off, and people that are going on the day-to-day basis. It's not a one-off. Go back to the Axios chart, and you can see how much of a not one-off it is. The hypocrisy is astounding. If you want to have a message of tolerance and let's get these people the mental help they need, because he needed mental help, so did the guy in North Carolina who killed 3 people at that waterfront bar, a veteran, people who we ignore and don't treat. People said warning signs for decades that had been ignored. Make that your message no matter who's killing people. But when the shoe is on the other foot and you can't demonize the left for this one, they say nothing. Nothing. Oh, it was just about anti-Christian bias. It was a Christian, by the way, killing other Christians. Yeah.
MAGA is so happy to push their fake statistics, but even more dangerous than that, they are so happy to find any little bit of information that they can misconstrue about an individual that they want to paint as being on the radical left. The alleged assailant in the killing of Charlie Kirk is someone that MAGA has tried to paint in this broad stroke as some liberal, some person who went to community college or trade school, it seems like, for half a semester, and now they want to say he was indoctrinated by some liberal university in Utah. None of it makes any sense, but they'll take anything that they can get, and sometimes it feels planted, like bullet casings with ICE, anti-ICE written on it in Sharpie, but they'll take anything that they can get and try to spin it against liberals and for their cause. And that includes people close to the shooter. Of course, the alleged Charlie Kirk assailant, again, allegedly has a partner who is trans, and although that individual is cooperating with the FBI, MAGA wants to use that as an excuse to attack trans people. It doesn't make a lot of sense. And it especially doesn't make a lot of sense when you take that same frame and apply it to the shooter in Michigan, whose family has a similar background to him, And what they said only makes Donald Trump's false framing all the much worse. Mormon church shooter's MAGA mom shared chilling message before massacre. The mother of the Mormon church shooter posted an ominous message in the days before the massacre about being hurt by someone close to her who constantly avoids accountability. Gunman Thomas Jacob Sanford's mom, Brenda Walters Sanford, shared the message on Friday, just 2 days before the ex-Marine rammed a pickup truck into the Church of Latter-day Saints in Grand Blanc Township, Michigan, and opened fire and set the building ablaze. We can see right here the mom of the assailant with a Trump Vance poster and standing in front of a Trump mannequin. The post that the mother made read, "Talking to someone who constantly avoids accountability is not a real conversation. It's a battle. It's a cycle of deflection, projection, twisting, and playing the victim. When I try to express how your actions have hurt me, you don't listen. With the intention of understanding, you listen with the intention of defending yourself. That's not communication. That's self-preservation of your ego." The wording appears to have circulated widely on Facebook as a viral chain rather than being an original post by the mother, who did not indicate who she was referring to. The post continued, "I don't owe my peace to someone who only wants to win an argument, not to understand my heart. My energy is not a prize for someone committed to misunderstanding me. At some point, you have to value yourself enough to stop begging someone to hear you." Walter Sanford did not immediately respond to request for comment. Her 40-year-old son, who appears to be a Donald Trump supporter, took the lives of 4 people and injured 8 before dying in a police shootout. The Marine Corps has confirmed Sanford was a veteran who deployed in 2007 during Operation Iraqi Freedom. Ahead of that tour, his father said he's a homegrown kid who misses his family when he's gone. But one family friend told a journalist that she had been told Sanford was battling PTSD. With all evidence pointing towards Sanford having been a Trump supporter, MAGA influencers wasted no time spinning conspiracies about the massacre. The president's Truth Social post, framing the rampage as yet another targeted attack on Christians, was eagerly echoed by high-profile boosters like Gunther Eagleman, filmmaker Robbie Starbuck, and podcaster Benny Johnson. All right, so let us use the same framing that MAGA did with the alleged trans partner of the alleged Charlie Kirk shooter. This mother was MAGA. Does that mean that it is a further confirmation that Donald Trump is responsible for all political violence in America? This mother posted an ominous message saying that you can't reason with people. You can't talk to them. They don't want to hear you. That's a similar message to what we've been hearing from Donald Trump, from Stephen Miller, from J.D. Vance, saying that the left just doesn't want to listen. We can't have a conversation with these people. We need to inflict force upon them. So, if we took the right's logic, if we framed this as they always do, this was a Trump supporter encouraged by his Trump-supporting mother to carry out political violence because they don't believe the left can be communicated with anymore, that there are people who you cannot reason with, that they are animals beyond comprehension, and so they must be taken out. That is the same framing that MAGA uses. That is disingenuous framing. That is looking for every bit in piece you can possibly find to support your argument, which I don't need, because this guy was a Trump supporter. He had a Trump sign, he wore Trump shirts, he had the merch, he fit the demo. I don't need to go out of my way, like MAGA did, trying all that they possibly could, literally launching investigations to try to find a connection between the trans community and the alleged assailant of Charlie Kirk. I don't have to do that, but if I wanted to, it would be very easy. But the difference between the left and the right on this is we don't need abstractions. We don't need to find clips out of context. Donald Trump is the reason for increased political violence in America. Donald Trump is the reason why we have not in a decade addressed the epidemic of gun violence in America. And Donald Trump doesn't care. Fundamentally, he doesn't care. We have to make that very, very clear, that these people do not care about us, but they are responsible for the damage that is being done in this country with their rhetoric, who they encourage, and who they let out of prison. Let's not forget those who committed the biggest act of political violence that we've seen in recent American history on January 6th. They were all let go to reoffend, These are not people who should be in society. These are people who were not rehabilitated. These are people who were inspired to commit more violent acts on behalf of Donald Trump. And that is political violence. That is political violence. We want to have this kind of myopic framing of political violence as something that can only be carried out against a politician or a figure within our politics, but it's not true. Donald Trump allowing his supporters, his cultists, his thugs back onto the streets to reoffend, that is political violence. It's like Donald Trump's own unbadged police force. And that's how we have to talk about it. There's so much political violence that we don't talk about in this conversation. But in the light of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu visiting Donald Trump, I think we need to talk about his political violence that Zohran Mamdani called out right here.
So Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is visiting the White House as we are talking today. He addressed the UN General Assembly here just a few days ago in New York. Now, the International Criminal Court has a warrant out for his address. They say that they accuse him of crimes against humanity. You have called, as I mentioned, Netanyahu's actions in Gaza genocide. It's going to become not just a rhetorical, but a question rooted in reality if you are mayor. As mayor of New York, you will oversee the next UN General Assembly, right, if you're mayor. Will you abide by the International Criminal Court? Will you have Prime Minister Netanyahu arrested if he's here?
Look, I've said time and time again that this is a city that believes in international law. This is a city whose values are ones that deserve to actually be reflected in our commitments. And I think that our city should uphold the warrants the International Criminal Court issues, whether it be for Benjamin Netanyahu or Vladimir Putin.
One of the many things that I love about the campaign that Zohran Mamdani ran, that I think all of y'all know if you watch this show and know how much I love him. And there's a lot of things that I loved about that campaign, but I loved the universality of it. There's a universality in the message that Zohran brings. He does not shy away from topics because they are uncomfortable. If they fit his worldview, they fit his worldview. He is not going to say that we all deserve human rights and then kind of look away from people who the truth of their human rights makes his politics more inconvenient. He is not going to do that. We can no longer be progressive except Palestine. That is not progressivism. That is not a recognition of the innate value of every human life, every child's life. We cannot say that it is time to put an end to children being slaughtered in schools without caring about the children who are being slaughtered and bombed in their schools that are even left at this point in Gaza. That is something that we have to make clear. And if we cannot be universal in our approach to our politics, we don't really have any politics to stand on. And so I want to take the same approach that Zohran has. I think that is how we need to approach this moment. That is how we can be truthful in this moment. And that is how we can fight back in this moment. We are going to continue to do so on this show. If you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video. If you stuck around to the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. And if you want to support the show in another way, you can become a free or paid subscriber to my YouTube channel or to my Substack linked right here or below. It's one of the best ways to support the show. Keep on fighting. Don't let them silence you. And until next time, I'll see you soon.